What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets, and break down some big news involving Tesla and what's happening with Jerome Powell, as he said some very important things that could affect the markets, not to mention some big announcements coming out from President Trump. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. Moomoo is an amazing global brokerage account that consists of many exclusive offers. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total. And deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60. The offer ends on June 3rd, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So, despite the fact that we got FOMC and some bearish things said by Jerome Powell, the market's very flat right now and still quite indecisive. So, it's important to note that sometimes when you're day trading, there's going to be instances where the market does not make the move that you're anticipating, or you don't really get a big move. So we have to be very, very patient with this and wait and see which way we end up going, because we're going to be looking to see some key levels to be tested. And there's also going to be a big news coming out from President Trump soon. So all of that could still cause a lot of volatility very soon. And I will talk more about those in just a couple of minutes. But I first want to talk about some Tesla news and other pieces of news, then I'll break down what's happening with the charts. First and foremost, there was some negative news that came out about how the Chinese-made EV sales did decline 6.6% for Tesla. That's actually very common for the month of April. What typically happens is we get a big increase in the March sales, and then we see a bit of a decrease in shipments in April before another increase in the May to June period. So we'll see if we get a big increase later on, but there was a slight decrease in the Chinese-made EV deliveries, at least for the shorter term. Now, there was some more good news that came out. Tesla's cheaper RWD Model Y is now available in the US. That is some good news because after many federal tax subsidies, as long as they still exist, that's in, that's still something that's worth noting. It's going to cost about $37,490 if you account for all of that. But without the subsidies, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. So we'll see how well that ends up holding Tesla up and how long those end up lasting for. But that's some good news. This could help them incentivize more sales as time goes on. Tesla also is planning on increasing their production of cheaper EVs by increasing their new techniques for molding different parts to make production mechanisms a lot cheaper as well. So that's what they're essentially working on. So that's what Tesla's doing so far, and the share price is still flat despite this. Now, Jerome Powell also said some very important things. I want to break down what he said by reading his transcript. Keep in mind that Jerome Powell typically does cause a lot of volatility, but today we didn't really see a massive move in one direction. The market was still kind of trading sideways despite this. So what is going on? What is Jerome Powell saying? The first thing worth mentioning is that the Fed kept rates the same because they're very, very uncertain. Jerome Powell is saying that they're going to continue to look at the GDP numbers, but with the GDP numbers falling for Q1, it's going to once again reflect lower sentiments and lower consumer practices. On top of this, he mentioned that inflation has come down a great deal, and they're still above their 2% goal, but things are very complicated now because of the tariffs. He said that the tariffs so far are significantly bigger than expected, and that if the large increases in tariffs as announced are sustained, we will see higher inflation and lower employment. He also mentioned that the Fed may find its dual mandate goals in tension because they're continuing to watch the inflationary expectations. They want them to be more anchored, despite the fact that we are expecting another increase in inflation due to the higher tariffs. He said that we're in a good position to wait because so far, even though it's somewhat elevated, the inflationary numbers are not too bad. And then he's saying that the labor numbers are also looking quite consistent. The labor market's still holding up well. So the Fed is in a very, very good position to wait for greater clarity on the tariffs. So Jerome Powell is basically saying the Fed does not have anything that is predetermined. The Fed is not going to promise anything about policy right now. All they're doing is waiting on the tariffs, and that as long as the data is decent, they're going to continue to wait on that. So not the best of news, but that's what he's saying so far. He said that we're well positioned for waiting for greater clarity, and that ultimately policy still remains in a good place. We don't need to be in a hurry, according to Jerome Powell. He also said that if we see higher inflation and higher unemployment, then we won't see further progress towards their goals. He mentioned that there's still lots of uncertainty about the tariffs, and that's what's affecting their policies, and that the economy is in a good shape, but we won't make progress on their goals this year if the tariffs stay. So he's saying that that's a very, very big claim. He also said that he can't confidently say that we're on an appropriate path to cutting or not. There's going to be some scenarios where cutting is going to be necessary for the year. Other scenarios where cutting may not be necessary depending on the tariffs. That's what he's saying. So please keep that in mind. On top of this, Jerome Powell is also saying that with the way things are going, people are worried, but the shock has not hit yet. And then he went on about how the Fed has to just wait and see. When asked, is he going to meet up with President Trump, Jerome Powell said that he never asks to meet a president. They ask him, if anything. He's never asked to meet President Biden or President Trump or anyone like that. He is simply going to be, responding to what is said to him, essentially. So even though Jerome Powell does oftentimes cause very, very big volatility, this time around they didn't really cause a big move. The market is just kind of holding up as it is. And that's the reason why we're just seeing a lot of chop right now. We didn't really get a big reaction from these big institutions to cause a lot of volatility. Now, when it comes to President Trump, he's going to be the next big factor for this market. Okay. President Trump said that we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets. He said that while he was meeting up with the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, he said that it's going to be really, really positive and that the announcement is going to be made either on Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave to the Middle East. And then he said that it's going to be one of the most important announcements that we have made in many years about a certain subject. It's going to be a very, very important subject. So you'll all have to be here. So that's some big news that's come out from President Trump. He's going to be making a big announcement tomorrow or Friday or Monday. It's going to be one of the biggest announcements in years. And he's saying it's going to be very, very positive. So could this also be another factor to shake the markets? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, excuse me. That's going to be very important. When it comes to other policies, keep in mind that President Trump wants to lift some export restrictions on particular chips, especially the H20 chip for NVIDIA, which is why the share price is up. There's also been more news about how he does not want to decrease tariffs on China because he's waiting to see if they can negotiate, which is what they were talking about yesterday. He's talking about potential deals for India, South Korea, Japan, and many other countries. And President Trump's saying that there's going to be a fair deal coming soon. So President Trump is once again in a very, very interesting position where he's talking about how he wants more negotiations with many of the US's biggest partners like Canada and the others. He doesn't want to decrease tariffs. In fact, he's actually talking about how he wants to increase some tariffs on pharmaceuticals and in the movie industry on films that are made in foreign countries, and the list goes on. So yes, he's talked about wanting to increase tariffs here and there, but he's also lifted some exports for chips, which is bullish. So very, very mixed news on tariffs. But then there's going to be a very big announcement coming, possibly tomorrow or Friday or Monday. So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and get ready, guys, for something very big. This may cause a very, very big move in the stock market. So we'll see what President Trump ends up saying. Last but not least, let me just say a couple more things about our data. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, May 8th, 2025. At 8:30 a.m., we have some jobs numbers, initial jobs claims. Then we have some bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. Also, when it comes to the market sentiment, right now, greed is making up the majority of sentiment. We'll see if that holds or not. And then to add on to this, I want to say that momentum is at extreme fear right now. We'll see if this shifts or not. We're just waiting to see as we're very indecisive. The put to call option ratio is dipping as we're seeing puts being close and buyers stepping in, and the VIX remains quite neutral. Also, to add on to this, we just got big earnings from Walt Disney. They did relatively well because they saw a big increase in their overall subscription base, and they're continuing to see revenue improving. So that's why the share price is up. ARM is also dumping in the after hours, however, because they had weak outlooks. Going into tomorrow, it's going to be Thursday. We have Peloton and Shopify announcing earnings, not to mention Coinbase. So get ready for all of this. What do I think is going to happen to Tesla? Now let's talk about what I predict could end up happening. But let me just remind you all about what I said earlier, and that is when we're day trading, we're like hunters, right? We are not just going to jump on everything. We're not just going to be pouncing for no reason. Sometimes the market requires us to be very, very patient. Sometimes you have to wait and see what move is about to pan out, and we wait patiently. We don't give away our hiding spots. We're not just going to scream out of nowhere. We wait patiently, we wait silently, we remain calm-headed, and then when the move comes, we pounce. We pounce very, very fast like a jaguar or whatever predator you guys want to be. My point is we're going to wait and see what this move ends up looking like, and sometimes I'm forced to kind of like be unbiased about my whole analysis. So for Tesla, what isn't so good is the fact that we had a high up here at 294 4. We made a lower high. So the bearish case is going to be if we end up failing at 272, we could be retesting 268 or even 261 if we're bearish. Okay. But if we're bullish, all right, you want to see us get back above 280. If we could hold above that, we might see an attempt for 285 plus for a small push to the upside. Now, as of right now, look at the last 3 days. Tesla basically did this. It hit 280, went down to 272, back to 280, 272, 280 right over here, back down, back up. So it's just trading sideways right now. So we have to just wait and see which way we end up breaking. There's no confirmation yet. When you zoom out, it's possible Tesla's trying to make a higher low here compared to the lows over here. There's always that possibility. Could Tesla be trying to form a flag? I mean, I wouldn't rule that out, but I'm not really thinking it's that clear. I'm really just in the middle, guys. I'm not really seeing much of a move yet until we break one of these levels. So tomorrow, what I would say is we might see a little retest of the low. Obviously, Jerome Powell's words were kind of bearish, but as long as we're above 272, if we get back above 278, we're looking for a big push up. And if we end up losing 272, we could be dipping back down to the lower levels. I'm predicting that we kind of consolidate for some time still, but then we're going to be looking for a big move. When we get very, very tight on our Bollinger Bands or with different indicators, it's oftentimes telling us there's going to be a big move coming. So we'll see what President Trump announces. Now, it's possible that even if we do dip a little bit and consolidate like this, if President Trump's big announcement, he's saying there's going to be a very, very big announcement. He said it's going to be very positive. Trump's words are it's going to be really, really positive, one of the biggest announcements. If it causes the whole market to bounce, Tesla could make a comeback, and we could be looking for these imbalances to fill to push us back up towards 290. It's possible we do that, but there's so many moving parts in this market that I can't make promises yet. So I'm going to be very, very patient. I'm going to wait and pounce on the move when it comes. For now, we're looking for us to trade sideways between these EMAs. Hopefully, we do eventually break out with President Trump's announcement, but we don't know for sure. I do think we might be retesting 272 and consolidating tomorrow, but then we'll see if we get a bounce later on with President Trump's announcement if it comes tomorrow. So keep that in mind as an external catalyst. For SPY, okay, there's a little bit of weakness because of the fact that one could argue that we have this like head and shoulder like pattern, the left shoulder at the head and the right shoulder, but there's no confirmation of a direction break quite yet. We've been stuck in the same range for 3 days. Now, you could also tell we're making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and higher lows. And this could be trying to go higher if that ends up being the case. Also, SPY keeps on bouncing off our 20 EMA, so we're still holding support. Now, from what I see, we're stuck between 555 as support and 567 as our resistance, kind of going back and forth and back and forth. If we're bullish, if President Trump gives us that big announcement and launches SPY up, we want to break 567. If we break that high, I think we could be going for 575. If President Trump does not give us the announcement, we end up dumping, let's just say Jerome Powell's words dump us. You want to see 555 fails. If it fails there, we could be dipping to 552, then back down to 545. What I think is going to happen is that we might shop a bit. We might actually retest 555 and consolidate. But if President Trump's announcement truly is so huge and so positive, there is that potential to get that breakout. So I would not rule this out, especially since so far SPY is holding support at these EMAs are making higher lows. The full measured move of this breakout would take us up to about 575. So there's potential to go higher. So we'll see about that just to be safe, depending on what President Trump announces. On the QQQ, by the way, it's the same thing. The full measured move would take us all the way up here towards this 494 area if we get the breakout. But as of right now, there's no confirmation. It's actually quite simple the way I'd play this and watch this. If we hypothetically lose 478, we're looking for a dump to 475 or below. If we're bullish, you want to see us get back above like 490 to push for 494. We're currently in the middle, so I wouldn't be surprised if this consolidates before we attempt to go a little bit higher. So I think this might retest 478, push back up and consolidate like this. But then if 494 breaks, we're looking for an attempt to push towards 494 to get back up to this high. So that's what's another possibility. So we could be retesting 478 to 475, and then we'll see if we consolidate before we get some kind of bounce move. So give it some time. On the IWM, we're also trading sideways. We're actually making lower highs right here. We're making higher lows here, but then the lower highs are actually on the shorter term. So right over here, you guys can see there's like a lower high. So that's not the best of news. But we're still range bound between the EMAs. So if we lose 194, this could be dumping back down to the low 190s. If we break past 198.8, we're looking for an attempt to push to 202. overall, we're still stuck in the middle, going back and forth between supply and demand. I think there is going to be potential for upside if we do break 198.8 and we end up pushing to this imbalance. We could try to push higher. There's that possibility depending on the news that comes out from President Trump. So we're in the middle. Break 198.8, we're bullish. Lose 194.98, we're bearish. We're in the middle, but I do think that we might see a small dip to 195 and consolidate first. And then whether President Trump makes his announcement on Thursday or Friday, I don't know, but that could cause a big move. I would not rule out President Trump. He causes massive, massive volatility. On ES, if we're bearish, if we lose 5,600, we're looking for a dip back down to 55.50 or below. If we're bullish, you want to get back above 56.75. If that breaks, looking for an attempt to push. My guts tells me that this is going to likely consolidate for a bit. So we might retest 5,600 and consolidate before it attempts to go higher. If we hold this 5,600 area, there is actually going to be potential to go higher. And the reason I say that is because every time we hit this 50 EMA, the yellow line, we're just bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. If we lose it, we could turn bearish. Now, it's possible we come down there and consolidate for a bit, but then we could break out higher if President Trump gives us a good announcement, but I don't know for sure. So we'll see, just to be safe. So make sure you watch your levels. On NQ, if we lose 19,750, we dump back down to 19,650, then the 19,500s. If we're bullish, you want to get back and hold above 20,000 to push for 20,500. My gut tells me the same thing. We might retest 19,750 and consolidate for some time. But then if President Trump gives us the news we're looking for, I would not rule out the possibility of us trying to push back up for the 20,000 plus area, all the way back up to like 20,500 if Trump launches us. So I do think that's a possibility. So keep that in mind. Bitcoin's holding up well so long as we don't lose 95,000. We're also favoring 98,000 plus. It's looking pretty good. Tesla's range bound right now, going back and forth and back and forth. But we want to see this break past 280 to continue to go higher. I do think that we might retest 272 and consolidate, but there could be upside if we get a good announcement. NVIDIA is looking bullish. We hit the blue line and bounced and bounced and bounced. This news about the export restrictions being lifted to some extent could actually help us push a bit higher to essentially that 118 level and eventually 120. So we'll have to see how that goes. For Apple, we're actually making lower highs right here. We're rejecting so far. So we'll just have to see how it goes, at least for the time being. We'll see if we actually push to 97.5 or not. And then don't forget there's a low at this 190 area. I would like to see us base. We need to show signs of a base first. We're not ready yet. It could dip a little bit more before it tries to bounce. So I want to see if we could hold 195, if not 190. Netflix, however, looks bullish. There's no sign of rejection yet, and we could be looking for an attempt for 1175 to 1200. Might be going a little bit higher as long as we don't lose 1136. MSTR is looking bullish as long as we don't end up losing 386. We're actually favoring an attempt to push for 403 plus or above. Celsius is looking pretty good as long as we don't lose 35.48. We're actually looking for an attempt to push for 37. Supermicro is very indecisive. It's just trading sideways. It might retest 30.9 tomorrow and just trade sideways between 29 and 32. I'm not really expecting much from it. Palantir might be pushing for 113.5 if we hold above 110, so keep that in mind. Rivian may dip back down to 12.5 to 12.3, and we'll see if it bounces, but there might be a small dip. SoFi is trying to reaccumulate. If we end up losing 12.8, we could be bouncing towards like 12.4. AMD is consolidating. We're actually stuck between 102 and basically 98. So I do expect us to kind of trade sideways here. We'll see how that goes as well. We're not really doing a whole lot. ARM is rejecting. So we'll have to see how things go around 107.5. I think we might be testing 107.5 and we'll see what the reaction is. So I do anticipate some downside. Palantir is looking a little bit more bullish. So long as we don't lose 67.5, we're actually favoring a push for the 69 area. Coinbase is very indecisive as well. I want to see us get back above 200 to bounce. So long as we don't lose 195, we might just consolidate. Amazon is looking decent. As long as it doesn't lose 187, it might actually push for 190. Might see a retest of 190 tomorrow, and we'll see if it breaks past that or not. If Meta could break and hold above 600, we're looking for an attempt for 615 and eventually back up towards like 630. So it is looking bullish so far. Unless we end up losing like 586, we're still holding up quite well. Microsoft may be retesting 428, and we'll see if we bounce. Then Google came all the way down towards 150. We need to hold this to rebound for 156. If 150 holds tomorrow, I'm looking for a test of 156. For DJT, we're going to be looking for a test of 24.43. The VIX is looking kind of weak right now, but we'll see if this bounces or not. If this does reject, that could be a sign the market's going to continue to go higher. And the 10 year is kind of flat. The dollar is also flat. Will the dollar see an inverse head and shoulders breakout, or is it just going to consolidate? We have to wait and see. So there's so many moving parts in this market. What is President Trump about to say? What's going to happen with these announcements? That's why I remain a bit indecisive right now. I'm just going to wait and see what the big move is going to be once we break one of these levels. So for now, I'm going to be a very, very patient person, wait and see how it goes. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Watch your levels, and we'll see what ends up happening. I'll be back tomorrow morning before market open. Thank you for listening, and peace out.